Part 15. Adorable Baby, The Miracle Doctor is So Awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 141. For a time, the entire pavilion was filled with Hanbealogo's cries. She was very unobtrusive when she was crying. However, after she finished crying, she stood up from Kuimi's arms and saw everyone looking at her. Her face instantly turned red and she felt embarrassed. Seeing Qingbao looking at him with his big eyes, Chi-Chi felt even more ashamed and wanted to find a crack in the ground to burrow into. Kuimi touched her head and gently wiped her tears with a handkerchief, completely treating her like a child. Hanbealogo sheepishly took the handkerchief and said in a nasal voice, "Grandpa, I will do it myself." Kuimi felt a little regretful, but he didn't force it. Children are getting older and are easily embarrassed. "Bealu, tell Grandpa how you have been living in the Han family these years." Hanbealogo blew his nose. Mo Fei Yang looked at her movements and couldn't help but hold his forehead. His little skin was really unpretentious. However, what should I do if he likes her more? The way her eyes and nose were red from crying made him want to bully her even more. When Hanbealogo was bullied by Logo's mother and daughter before, she swore in her heart that if the mother and daughter had the ability, they would kill her. Otherwise, when she had a backer one day, she would kill them. So although Hanbeokan is in dire straits now and she herself is doing well, it does not prevent her from filing a complaint at all. Who said she has a backer now? Hanbealogo hugged Kuimi's arm, rested his head on his shoulder, and talked about his miserable childhood. When my mother was alive, I was still living a good life, and no one in the house dared to bully me. But once my mother passed away, I became a child without a mother. A child without a mother is just a piece of grass, and no one dares to bully me. I can step on it. My mother and I originally lived in the largest and best courtyard in the house. Not long after my mother passed away, my father brought back the Logo family and her daughter. Not only did they occupy the magpie's nest, they also drove me to the most remote and shabby courtyard. In the yard, all my mother's things were taken over by that shameless woman from Lugoshi. But my father ignored me. At first I thought he didn't know at all and that Lugoshi had deceived him. Then one time I ran out desperately and complained to him, but he just told me to stay in the yard and not come out. There was no punishment for the mother and daughter at all. I knew at that time that this father was unreliable, and I had to rely on myself for everything. After that, I lived alone in that small courtyard. When I was hungry, I would go to the kitchen to get food, and when my clothes were worn out, I would steal from the little maid. Clothes to wear. Since it happened a long time ago, when Hanbealogo talks about it now, it is strange that there is no pain at all, but he still finds it a bit funny. However, Kuimi was heartbroken and scolded Han Zhengqing in his heart. Mo Fei Yang was playing with the tassels falling from his jade pendant in his hand. When he heard this, he paused and a strong murderous intention flashed in his eyes. Shen Yizi held Qingbao and sat on her lap, thinking that if such a thing happened to Qingbao, she would be angry even if she died. So in order to prevent Qingbao from being bullied by others in the future, she, the mother-in-law, must live a long life and serve as a supporter for her little baby all her life, so that he can live freely in this world. He can bully others, but she will never allow others to bully him. As for whether Qingbao will become more and more doted on by her. Isn't there also goose whitting? Loving mother and strict father. What a good combination. Hanbealogo continued to tell, no, to be precise, it was a complaint. He told all the things that the Logo family and his daughter had bullied him about since childhood. She remembers all these clearly. Originally, she was very happy to complain, but seeing her grandpa's face getting increasingly ugly, she wanted to slap herself in the face. She was happy for herself, but ignored her grandpa's feelings. Grandpa must have been so sad and guilty when he heard this. Hanbealogo hurriedly caressed his chest to comfort him. "Grandpa, those things have passed. Don't be angry. It's not worth it to make yourself so angry. In fact, your granddaughter and I are living a good life now. Just look at my complexion. I know, I eat well and sleep well every day, and I have made two good friends, you see, sisters Hizi and Chuntao. Han Bailuo introduced Shenyazi and Li Chuntao to his grandfather. Shenyazi knew that Kui Mi knew this. This girl had saved him once before, and this time she also won the courtesan title at the Kunfang festival. He had a very good impression of her. The other girl, Li Chuntao, seems to be a good child as well. Sisters Hizi and Chuntao are always very kind to me. I am still learning medical skills from Sisters Hizi. Kui Mi felt relieved and said solemnly to the two of them, "You are both good children. Thank you for taking care of Bailu." Shenyazi smiled and said, "There is no such thing as caring between friends. The main thing is that Bailu is lovable, otherwise we wouldn't be able to get together." Li Chuntao nodded in agreement, yes, Bailuo also helps me a lot." Han Bailuo told the story of how he and Shenyazi got to know each other, and finally said with a smile, "Fortunately, Sisters Hizi gave me a bottle of medicine at that time, and luckily I took it, otherwise you wouldn't be able to see me at this time." She didn't hear Kui Mi speak for a long time. She couldn't help but look at him, but she saw that her grandfather's face was not as ugly as usual, and his body was even shaking slightly. "Grandpa, are you okay?" Shenyazi saw that the old man was obviously angry and handed over a porcelain bottle. "Bailuo, give your grandpa one pill." "Okay." Han Bailuo poured out a pill and fed it to Kui Mi without any hesitation. This is a Juxin pill made by Shenyazi. It can stabilize the mood, lower blood pressure, and also warms and nourishes the heart. It's a good time for Kui Mi to eat. Mo Fei Yang stared at the pill bottle. The moment the pill appeared, he felt an obvious spiritual energy again. Obviously, the medicine was made from spiritual materials. He lowered his eyes to cover his thoughts. After taking the medicine, Kui Mi obviously felt much better. He was no longer so congested and didn't feel out of breath. Looked at Shenyazi gratefully. Immediately, I couldn't help but let out a long sigh. This Han Zhengqing is really nothing. Kui Fu, go and bring that over to me. I want to ask him why he wants to fight Bailu like this. The middle-aged man who had been standing behind Kui Mi responded and strode out. Looking at his steps and body shape, this person is obviously an expert, and he can be considered a master among ordinary people. After a while, Kui Fu really brought Han Zhengqing here. After entering the pavilion, he threw it on the ground, returned to Kui Mi again, and stood still. Han Zhengqing staggered and almost fell to the ground. After standing firm, he straightened his clothes and looked into the pavilion. I found that Mr. Kui was actually sitting with his eldest daughter, seemingly intimate, and Mr. Kui stared at him with an angry look on his face, as if he wanted to bite off a piece of meat from his body. He couldn't help but feel a little scared. "Step forward and bow your hands in greeting. Junior has met you, sir. I wonder why your husband called me here. Adorable baby, the miracle doctor is so awesome." Author, 955. Chapter 142. The Han family is one of the three major families in Langcheng, and Han Zhengqing is the head of the Han family. He is respected and fawned over by all kinds of people when he goes outside. Today, the reputation of the Han family was crushed to pieces by Han Baokan. Han Zhengqing can no longer hold it as before. Furthermore, as the dean of the prestigious Zhengrong Academy, Kui Mi is not something that a family head in a remote town can afford to offend. Didn't you see that even the city lord wants to fawn over him? So he selectively ignored the fact that Kui Fu, who was beside Kui Mi, mentioned him. However, his spineless look made Kui Mi quite displeased. The daughter he held in his palm and doted on was actually married to such a person? It makes me heartbroken just thinking about it. Kui Mi said coldly, Han Zhengqing, I am Yu Niang's father. I already know everything you did to Bailuo. What do you have to say now? If he confessed with tears and tears, for Bailu's sake, he could only hold his nose and recognize the son-in-law. If not, don't blame him for taking Bailu away directly. After hearing Kui Mi's words, Han Zhengqing froze on the spot and couldn't react for a while. He glanced at Han Bailuo, his eyes extremely complicated. I have nothing to say. Kui Mi almost jumped up and slammed the table. This Han Zhengqing is really unrepentant. His chest heaved violently several times with anger, and his anger was barely calmed down by Han Bailuo's comfort. Let me ask you, how did you and Yu Niang meet? How did you meet? Thinking of how he and Yu Niang met, Han Zhengqing couldn't help but look dazed. After coming back to his senses, he found a seat and sat down. At that time, the Han family was not as powerful as it is now. It was just an insignificant little family in Langcheng. One day, I made an appointment with my friends to go hunting in the mountains. But it rained on the way, so I hurriedly looked for a place to hide from the rain, and found a cave. Not long after I entered, a girl covered in blood stumbled in. She was Yu Niang. After seeing me, Yu Niang looked very wary, and there was a trace of murderous intent in her eyes. Obviously she wanted to kill me. But then I gave up for some reason. Hearing this, Kui Mi couldn't help but interrupt, nonsense, Yu Niang has been quiet and kind since she was a child, how could she want to kill you as soon as we meet? Han Zhengqing did not argue with him, and only said, Yu Niang was holding a sword in her hand at that time, and the sword was still dripping with blood. Judging from her dress, she seemed to have just experienced a fight with someone. After she came in, she threw me a bottle of medicine and asked me to give her the medicine. After taking the medicine, she sat aside and meditated, as if she was practicing breath control. The rain stopped in the meantime, but I didn't dare to leave past her. We can only continue to stay in the cave. When Yu Niang woke up, it was already 2 days later. I handed the roasted pheasant over and asked her if she wanted to eat it. She took it and then asked me a question. Having said this, Han Zhengqing paused. Shen Yizi discovered that this man was really a master of telling stories, with realistic details, detailed plots, and suspense points. Han Bailuo couldn't help but asked, what's the problem? She asked me if I wanted to revitalize the family. She can help me, but the premise is that I want to marry her and give her the status of a royal wife. Kui Mi's heart was shaken and his face was full of doubts. Why does it seem that the woman Han Zhengqing talks about is so different from the Yu Niang in his impression? What happened to Yu Niang after she disappeared? Han Zhengqing smiled bitterly. Although she was in a mess at the time, her appearance and temperament were unique. I agreed by mistake, thinking that she might have some affection for me. Unexpectedly, on the night of the wedding, she told me that she already had a child in her belly and that she would not be a real couple with me. If I wanted a child, I could find another woman. Everyone in the pavilion. I never expected that things would turn out like this. Initially, everyone thought that Han Zhengqing was a complete scumbag, a scumbag father. He has been nailed to the pillar of shame. In the end, he told them that he was 11 Dang's father? Then his actions don't seem to be incomprehensible, huh? Among them, the most shocking one is Han Bailuo. She never expected that she was not Han Zhengqing's daughter. Then who is my father? Han Zhengqing said, I don't know either, your mother didn't tell me. After we got married, we slept in separate rooms. A few months later, you were born, but when you were born, your mother lost her health, and then her health deteriorated day by day. It's better that one day, when you were 6 years old, you couldn't get through it. But she fulfilled her original promise in the end. While she was alive, she tried her best to help me revitalize the Han family, making the Han family become one of the best families in Langcheng. After her death, I brought the Luo family and her daughter into the house. As for moving you into that remote little courtyard, it was your mother's idea. Han Zhengqing exploded a bomb again. What, my mother's idea, how could she? Han Zhengqing sighed, I don't understand either. She said that only by staying in that yard can you grow up safely. She also told me not to interfere in your affairs. He looked at Han Bailuo with sincere eyes. Bailuo, although I am not your biological father, I watched you grow up anyway. At first, I didn't quite believe what your mother said. Plus you were really honest at that time. It's too young. How could I bear to let you live in that small courtyard alone? But then you got seriously ill, and the doctors were helpless, so I had no choice but to treat you as a living doctor and send you there. Who would have thought that after you entered that small courtyard, you really got better? Han Bailuo also remembered that at that time she was lying in a daze in the big yard that originally belonged to her mother, but when she woke up, she was in the small yard. That small yard is really dilapidated. The roof is leaking, the walls are leaking, and there are mice crawling around at night. She was so scared at the time, feeling that she had been abandoned by her father, that she burst into tears. Who knew there was such an inside story? For a while, no one made a sound in the pavilion. Kui Mi and Han Bailuo are both digesting what Han Zhengqing just said. Shen Yizi fell into deep thought. She felt that she might not have traveled through time, but through a book, into a novel with a heroine named Han Bailuo. Her biological mother, who had an extraordinary background, died when she was very young, causing her to live a life of misery and misery. She was constantly being teased and framed by her stepmother and her stepmother's daughter. Originally a delicate and lovely girl, because of the poisoning, he grew fatter and fatter, became increasingly unable to control his temper, and became hideous. Now that she has become thinner and more beautiful, she has slapped a wave of vicious stepsisters in the face who once stepped on her feet. Immediately afterwards, my grandpa, who had an extraordinary status, came to the door. From then on, I had a big backer. The identity of the biological father is a mystery. This trend is exactly the same as that used in fantasy novels where useless heroines counterattack and become stronger. Next, the scumbag fiancé who broke off the engagement should be looking for his biological father while becoming stronger step by step, right? And the male protagonist? Isn't he the handsome man she met when she was drugged by her vicious stepsister, that Mr. Mo Fei Yang? Shen Yizi felt as if he had accidentally discovered something extraordinary. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Adorable baby, the miracle doctor is so awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 143. Seeing that it was getting late, people in Kunfang Garden gradually went back to their homes to find their mothers. The originally lively garden suddenly became deserted. City Lord Xie Yun took the opportunity to propose, Miss Shen, it's getting late today. If you don't mind, you might as well go to the City Lord's mansion to stay for one night with some of your friends. We will go to the warehouse to pick out a treasure tomorrow. What do you think? As a distinguished guest, Kui Mi is also staying in the City Lord's mansion these days. If Miss Shen and his party live in the City Lord's mansion, then he can be closer to Bailu. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but look at Han Bailuo eagerly. Shen Yizi, however, did not want to live in the City Lord's mansion. No matter how nice the City Lord's mansion was, it was not her own territory and she always felt constrained and uncomfortable living there. Besides, it's not like she doesn't have a house. I haven't lived in the small courtyard I bought earlier for a while, so I just wanted to revisit it. Thank you for your kindness, but no need, I have a place to live in the city. Hearing this, Xie Yun did not insist anymore. That's good, but Miss Shen must remember to come to the City Lord's mansion. The private treasury of the city lord's mansion is open to you at any time. Shen Yizi couldn't help but smile. Okay, definitely. Isn't the city lord's attitude towards her too attentive? Is there any plot? Xie Yun said goodbye and left, but Kui Mi did not follow him. Instead, he smiled at Shen Yizi and said with infinite kindness, Miss Shen, since you are Bailu's friend, you are also my junior. I asked you to shout, would you like to know your opinion? No problem at all. Zizi, is your residence still spacious? Can I also? Kui Mi didn't want to be separated from his granddaughter, whom he had just met, and wished he could look at her all the time. Shen Yizi smiled and said, do you want to live there too? No problem, I have a spare room there. Although she can't live there, isn't there Goose Whitting's small courtyard next door? When leaving, Mo Fei Yang followed him shamelessly, and Han Bailuo glared at him several times. Instead of glaring away at him, it actually made him chuckle teasingly. Han Bailuo simply pulled down the curtains and stopped looking at him. Shen Yizi watched the interaction between the two people, with an ant smile in his heart that understood the overall situation. The group of people came to the small courtyard, and as soon as they opened the door, they were greeted by the lush green leaves that filled the courtyard, full of vitality. However, there is also a lot of litter accumulated on the ground, and a lot of weeds have grown. There were several layers of dust accumulated in the house. Li Chuntao was about to roll up her sleeves and do some cleaning. Shen Yi knew, don't bother, it's up to me. She cast a cleaning spell, and in an instant, the house that had accumulated several layers of dust became brand new, and the windows were bright and clean. This scene made Li Chuntao and Han Bailuo stunned. On the other hand, Qian Wu and Kun San were usually aware of it, but Shen Yizi didn't show it clearly before, so they just pretended not to know. Even helped her cover up. Kui Mi was a little surprised. Miss Zizi is a monk. Monks may be a little out of reach for ordinary people, but for a well-informed person like Kui Mi, they have heard about it and even seen it with their own eyes, so seeing her use such methods is only a little bit surprising. Just surprised. Shen Yizi nodded, that's right, but it can only cast some small spells, which is incomparable to the power that can call the wind and rain, fly into the sky and escape from the earth. Now that she has understood that monks are officially recognized in this world, she no longer hides them, but openly reveals them. After all, it's quite tiring to cover up. To put it bluntly, she is just lazy. Why does she have to work so hard to clean something that can be done with just one cleaning technique? After the monk's identity is revealed, she will be able to use the storage bag openly in the future. Mo Fei Yang took a deep look at Shen Yizi and didn't quite believe what she said. If it's true that she can only cast some small spells, why can't he even see through her cultivation level? Either her cultivation level has surpassed his, or else she has some magic weapon or spell that can cover up her cultivation level. But he is now a monk in the middle stage of chi refining. Even within the Mo family, there are few people who can compare with him. And his cultivation level was accumulated based on the huge resources provided by the clan. This Shen Yizi, who has lived in the secular world with a few kilograms of thin spiritual energy all year round, has a higher cultivation level than him. Does it make sense? So, does she have a magic weapon that covers her cultivation? The magical weapon is extremely rare even for a disciple of a big family like him. Where did she come from? The deeper he thought about it, the more Mo Fei Yang felt that Shen Yi was not simple. His pupils narrowed even more when he saw her taking out many snacks out of thin air. Storage magic weapon. Even he, the young patriarch of the Mo family, didn't have such a magic weapon. This is a deviation in Shen Yizi's cognition. Zhang Yuchun has a sky-swallowing bottle in his hand. The last time she took out something out of thin air, Goose Whitting opened her mouth and turned to the storage bag, acting very calmly. This gave her the illusion that the storage artifact was not something too rare. but he didn't know that Zhang Yuchun was not a small fish or shrimp, but a big boss. The sky-swallowing bottle was his favorite thing. If it wasn't for the purpose of seizing Qingbao without anyone noticing, how could he be willing to use it? After being taken away by Shen Yizi, he felt very distressed. Had it not been for the destruction of the clone to backfire on himself, causing serious damage to his vitality, he would have come over and snatched away the sky-swallowing bottle. As for Gu Suiding, as the most respected prince in the entire Tianyuan Empire, how many good things has he seen? Storage bags are ordinary in his eyes. These two people represent the power at the top of the pyramid. It would be strange if they are used to measure the average level of the world without deviation. Seeing that she not only took out a bunch of food and drinks, but also a lot of fresh ingredients, Mo Fei Yang was a little shocked. "Miss Shen, I would like to ask, how big is your storage bag?" Shen Yizi said casually, "It's as big as a room." She said it at a minimum. Mo Fei Yang felt like he had been hit again. On the other side, the ambitious Han Beiluo and Li Chuntao have happily brought Qingbao to eat some snacks. Although they were surprised at first, they were only surprised for a while, and then they accepted it naturally. Anyway, in their minds, Sisters Hizi was originally omnipotent, and now she has transformed into a legendary immortal, so it doesn't seem to be a big deal. Coupled with the fact that he doesn't know anything about monks or storage instruments, he has no concrete idea of how powerful Shen Yizi is. Because of ignorance, it seems more calm. Mo Fei Yang couldn't help but feel a little envious. "You guys sit down first and I'll cook. It'll be ready soon." Shen Yizi carried the ingredients into the kitchen. Han Beiluo and Li Chuntao hurriedly stood up to help. Shen Yizi waved his hand. "Beiluo, just stay outside and spend more time with your grandpa. Adorable baby, the miracle doctor is so awesome." Author, 955. Chapter 144. Han Beiluo felt warm in his heart. "Well, thank you, Sisters Hizi. There's nothing to be thankful for." Li Chuntao and Kun San followed in the kitchen. As for Qianwu and Li Qingyun, they went to the nearby yard to tidy up. Mo Fei Yang was left alone. Seeing that Shen Yizi, the secret Taoist friend, was busy in the kitchen, he naturally couldn't wait for dinner, so he asked, "Is there anything I can do to help?" Shen Yizi saw that the water tank was still empty, so he said, "You are responsible for fetching water." "Good." Speaking of it, Mo Fei Yang had never done such rough work before. He was born into a wealthy family and had countless maids and servants waiting on him at home. He didn't even need to do anything to drink tea. Furthermore, as a monk, he cognitively distinguishes himself from ordinary people. In his inherent concept, do monks still need to do those time-wasting things like mortals? However, at this moment, in this small courtyard, looking at the fireworks floating out of the kitchen, Qingbao squatting on the ground digging for bugs and playing, the courtyard wall covered with vines, everything is so vivid and rich. Vitality. It was something he had never noticed before. This is the life of ordinary people. Ordinary but full of fireworks. Originally, he didn't understand why Shen Yizi, as a monk, was still mixed up in the turbid world, but now he seemed to understand. Thinking like this, the bottleneck that had puzzled him for a long time actually loosened up. Mo Fei Yang's eyes burst into surprise. When he came out this time, he was looking for an opportunity to break through. However, after such a long time, he still failed to find it. Unexpectedly, due to an impromptu trip to Kunfang Garden, he not only met the girl who made his heart beat, but also found an opportunity for a breakthrough. The bottleneck has been loosened. If he continues to practice for a while, he might be able to break through. As a result, Mo Fei Yang fetched water even more vigorously. After the entire water tank was filled, he came out of the kitchen and saw Han Beiluo sitting on a wicker chair, holding an egg roll and eating it one bite at a time. Like a little squirrel, Bits of crumbs fell from the corner of his mouth from time to time, and some were stained on his face. He suddenly felt itchy. He walked over with long legs and approached her. "Does it taste good?" Hanbeoluo nodded. "Sisters Hizzy's cooking is of course delicious. Can you feed me a bite?" Hanbeoluo rolled his eyes at him. "Isn't it on the table? You can get it yourself." As soon as he finished speaking, Qingbao grabbed the last one. Mo Fei Yang looked at her and tried to look pitiful. "Just give me a taste, okay?" Kui Mi squatted in the corner and looked at the bunch of roses that were in full bloom. His feet were sore, so he stood up and moved around. As soon as he turned around, he saw his granddaughter being teased by a brat, and he was so angry that he blew his beard and walked over and stared at Mo Fei Yang from a high position. Mo Fei Yang felt a shadow cast in front of his eyes. When he looked up, he saw Mr. Kui's face as if he was guarding against wolves. He couldn't help but touch his nose with a guilty conscience, and stood up to give up his seat. "Grandpa, sit down." Kui Mi snorted coldly. "Who is your grandpa?" "Young man, don't call people randomly." Mo Fei Yang was speechless. Seeing him deflated, Hanbeoluo laughed so hard that his eyes narrowed. Took a piece of mung bean cake, handed it to Kui Mi, and said warmly, "Grandpa, eat the mung bean cake. It's delicious. There's ice milk filling in it. Take a bite, it's sweet, waxy, and very refreshing." Kui Mi took it with a happy face and took a bite. It was indeed delicious. "Well, it tastes really good. It's better than the ones I've eaten before. Not only is it delicious, the most important thing is that after eating it, you feel that the dryness in your body has been smoothed away, and your whole body feels refreshed." Hanbeoluo and Yorong said, "Of course, this is what Sisters Hizzy did." Not long after, a tempting aroma came from the kitchen. Qingbao ran in grabbing a piece of mung bean cake, hugged Shenyazi's legs, and tried to stand on tiptoes to look into the pot. "Mom, what are you doing?" "Making chestnut stewed chicken." Shenyazi opened the lid of the pot, and a fragrant white gas suddenly came out. The chestnuts and chicken pieces simmering in the pot were tumbling in the gurgling soup. Qingbao was so greedy that he took a bite of the mung bean cake in his hand. He then handed the chipped mung bean cake over and said, "Mother, I'll exchange it with you." Exchange the mung bean cake he bit into with her for chicken nuggets? This guy is very smart. However, Shenyazi rejected him ruthlessly. "If you don't change it, it's not cooked yet." The next second, she picked up a chestnut and brought it to her mouth. She blew it first and then tried to take a bite. It was soft, waxy, fragrant, and delicious. Qingbao was so anxious that he tugged at her skirt. "Mom, I want it too. Give the baby a bite." Shenyazi was amused and compassionately rewarded him with the remaining half. "Be careful if it's hot." Qingbao didn't care that it was left over from his mother's meal, and ate it with relish. Dinner was eaten in the courtyard, at a big table, and 8 adults, 4 men and 4 women, plus the child Qingbao, sat down happily. Shenyazi took out 2 jars of wine, 1 jar of pear blossom wine and 1 jar of fruit wine. The pear blossom wine is for those men to drink. Fruit wine is drunk by women and children. It has a very low alcohol content, is sweet, and is not intoxicating. Both sides were filled with wine. Shenyazi raised his glass and said, "Come on, let's have a toast. This drink celebrates the recognition of Mr. Beolu and his grandson." Everyone drank the wine happily. Hanbeoluo filled Shenyazi's glasses with wine, and then raised his glass himself. "Second glass, congratulations to Sisters Hizzy for winning the Warren at the Kunfang party." This meal, eating and drinking lasted until 8 or 9 o'clock. After cleaning up the mess on the table, everyone washed up and went to sleep. Shenyazi, the 4 girls and Qingbao slept on her side, while Ganwu and Mr. Kui lived in the yard next to her. Han family, backyard. Heng Xianjia Yuan. Han Baokan sat in a bathtub covered with flower petals, scrubbing her body repeatedly. When she thought of what Xie Jinlin, that lustful thing, had done to her during the day, she wanted to stab him to pieces and then chop him into pieces. And Han Baoluo. She was in this situation, but that was still fine. If given a chance, she will definitely make her suffer beyond redemption. The light cast her shadow on the screen, twisted and ferocious, like an ugly monster. A gust of wind passed by, and suddenly there was someone in the room. It was a woman in green clothes, with beautiful appearance and a proud expression. She frowned subconsciously after entering, as if this place was a dirty and smelly slum. When Han Baokan came out with her clothes on, she felt horrified when she saw the woman. She hurriedly knelt down and said, "Fairy Meng." Meng Ruyan raised her eyelids slightly. "Did City Lord Xie say when he would let you go to the City Lord's mansion?" Han Baokan's face turned pale, but he had to say, "Fairy Meng, the warren was taken away. But please listen to my explanation dash." How would Meng Ruyan listen to her explanation? If something doesn't get done, it doesn't get done. She only cares about the results. With a flick of his sleeve, Han Baokan, who was trying to kneel over, was thrown away. Adorable baby, the miracle doctor is so awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 145. Han Baokan hit the screen and spit out a mouthful of blood. The movement in the house alerted the maid who was guarding outside the house. "Girl, are you okay?" Han Baokan had previously ordered that no one was allowed to come in without her permission, so the maid did not dare to come in directly. Han Baokan wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and calmed his breathing. "It's okay." He returned to kneel down in front of Meng Ruyan again, with his head lowered, looking submissive, and there was not even a trace of dissatisfaction and resentment on his face. However, only she knew in her heart how much she hated her at this time. One day she will stand on the highest position, look down at all living beings, and destroy those annoying things into dregs with a wave of her hand. Meng Ruyan didn't bother to ask Kunfang what happened at the meeting. She directly put her hand on her head and used the soul-searching technique. Han Baokan opened her eyes wide and was horrified, because she felt that at this moment, she had become a completely transparent person, and everything in her mind was invisible. Fortunately, Meng Ruyan was only checking the memory of the day, and had no interest in prying into her thoughts just now, otherwise she might be killed with one palm. After reading it, Meng Ruyan uttered two words coldly, "Idiot." She did not hesitate to hand over the spiritual flower seeds to this woman, and repeatedly told her that she must win the warren, but the result was that she completely forgot about her instructions and only focused on showing off at the gathering. Those things you do are full of scheming but insufficient means. It's just poisonous, it's stupid. If you don't harm others, you will be harmed instead, and you deserve to be inferior to others in terms of skills. She became interested in Shen Yizi instead. Had she known this, she should have just waited until the warren showed up before looking for him, and wasted so much time on this idiot Han Baokan. However, she originally heard that there had not been an warren at the Kunfang party for several years, so she resorted to a roundabout way. Although the warren was not Han Baokan whom she had arranged, Shen Yizi was just a mortal woman. When the time came, she would find her and use entering the fairy gate as a bait. She was not afraid that she would not take the bait and be obedient. Thinking of this, Meng Ruyan curled her lips. As for this on earth. She looked at Han Baokan, who was lying on the ground holding her head and moaning in pain. After the soul search, she would probably be disabled even if she didn't die, and she would have no use value. Meng Ruyan didn't bother to kill her, so she stood up and left. After a long time, Han Baokan's body twitched suddenly and he opened his eyes. The next day, Shen Yizi had breakfast and took Qingbao to the city lord's mansion. On the way, he was stopped by a woman with her nostrils pointing up in the sky. "We girls have something to tell you, so come with me." After saying that, he turned around and walked towards the tea house next to him, without even thinking about whether Shenyazi would follow him. Shenyazi was confused for a while. Doesn't this woman feel too good about herself? Who is their girl? She doesn't know him, so why should she rush over if she wants to tell her something? Maybe you are sick. Shenyazi completed the appraisal in his mind, ignored it and walked over. When she realized that the person had not followed, Ziun was filled with disbelief. When she came back, she saw that the person had already walked out a long way away. She stamped her feet bitterly and chased after her. What's the matter with you? Our girl wants to see you, why are you running? Shenyazi avoided her grasping hand, glanced at her Qing Lingling, and gave her only one word, get out. Ziun was stunned for a moment, and when she came to her senses, she was about to explode with anger. Since he followed the girl, whoever saw her didn't say Sister Ziwan. Fighting to please her? This ugly woman is good. She came to invite her in a nice voice, but she actually told her to get out. He is indeed a despicable child. No cultivation at all. Just as she was about to retort, a graceful figure suddenly appeared in front of her. Ziwan's face lit up and she hurriedly complained to her, girl, she. Meng Ruyan raised her finger, I already know, no need to say more. She took a look at Shenyazi. What do you say about the eyes? It is full of a sense of looking down from above, and the eyes nakedly reveal, you are all ants. This feeling. Haha, but a second-level chi refiner is also crazy in front of her? Shenyazi really wanted to give her a big eye roll. But when I think about it, it's quite boring. Why bother arguing with an arrogant frog in the well? She is a low-key expert. So she hugged Qingbao and turned around to leave. Meng Ruyan. Stop. Meng Ruyan stood in front of Shenyazi and said, if you take one more step forward, I won't be rude to you. Yo-ho. How could she be rude to her? Shenyazi wanted to see it. But this woman stopped her several times. What did she want to do? Shenyazi's curiosity was aroused. Okay, since you invite me so sincerely, then I will go there reluctantly. Meng Ruyan's face twisted. How did this woman see that she was sincere? She is obviously giving her orders, okay. This ignorant, stupid mortal. Entering the tea house private room, Meng Ruyan said to Ziwan, you stay guard outside. Shenyazi glanced at the private room casually, sat down on his own, and took out a handful of melon seeds, peeling them one by one and feeding them to Qingbao. She likes to feed her little baby best when she has nothing to do. When waiting to eat, she looks like a little fat bird, opening her small red mouth. When she feeds the melon seeds, her mouth will purse. Eat with concentration and deliciousness. Sometimes Qingbao couldn't wait for her to feed him, so he would grab melon seeds and peel them himself. Unfortunately, his fat fingers were very inflexible when peeling melon seeds, and it took him a long time to peel one away. The two women were eating melon seeds here as if no one else was watching, while Meng Ruyan across from them almost lost her temper and laughed. It is true that the ignorant are fearless. In front of a fairy like her, the mother and son were so presumptuous. But Shenyazi would be needed later, so she reluctantly suppressed her anger. She knocked on the table and called out slightly impatiently, Shenyazi. Shenyazi looked at her. Then she discovered that the woman was actually using ecstasy on herself, a technique similar to hypnotism. She was awake the whole time, but in order to know the woman's purpose, she pretended to be attacked, and her eyes gradually became blurry and lifeless. I didn't expect that one day my acting skills would break out. Completely deceived the woman opposite. Later, you go to the private treasury of the city lord's palace and find a mirror with the words Ijhen engraved on the back. Take it out and use it as the treasure for this selection. A mirror with the words Ijhen engraved on the back. What does this woman want with this mirror? Shenyazi was puzzled in his heart, but his face remained calm, still looking like he was hypnotized, and he replied blankly, yes. Go Meng Ruyan lowered her chin. Shen Yizi came out holding Qingbao. Yu Chang, who was wrapped around Qingbao's arm, poked his head out. Zijhanjing, why does it feel so familiar? You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Adorable baby, the miracle doctor is so awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 146. What, you know? I seem to have heard of it a long time ago, but I can't remember it now. Don't monks have very good memories, how could they forget? Yi Chang rolled his eyes at her, then there are no memories, okay. I have lived for tens of thousands of years. If I could remember all the things that happened in the past, wouldn't my brain be bursting? Some of them are not everything that is too important is cleared out regularly. Then please recall carefully. This woman came to me specifically and asked me to bring out the mirror, which means that the mirror must be extraordinary. But why didn't the woman get it herself? Shen Yizi cast a spell on her as soon as they met. Shen Yizi didn't think this woman's character could be much better. If she could get the Zijhan mirror directly, the woman would have taken it long ago and would not have cared about whether the thing was a treasure in the city lord's private treasury. But now she found her in a roundabout way. There was only one possibility, that is, she couldn't get it directly. City lord's mansion. In the study room. Xie Yun asked people to stay outside, closed the door tightly, and stayed inside alone. He took out the bamboo tube containing the purple cloud butterfly from his sleeve and pulled out the bamboo plug. The purple cloud butterfly flew out and landed on a blank drawing paper hanging on the wall. It followed a specific trajectory and flew in a circle, with dots of purple light scattered on its wings, like a dream. Those light spots fall on the painting paper and gradually outline a figure. After this process was completed, a peerless beauty suddenly appeared on the drawing paper. The beauty is wearing a rouge-colored palace dress, with tall hair and emerald green hair, making her look luxurious. She blinked and came back to life. Xie Yun bowed and saluted, I've met your empress. The person in the painting is concubine Xie in the palace, named Xie Linlang. Xie Linlang got a fragment of a scroll called Kunfang Ju by chance. This is a unique practice book. Using flowers as a furnace, refining the life and essence in the flowers into the body can make the appearance more and more prosperous, stay youthful and immortal. This is simply too tempting for women. Although Kunfang Ju is only a fragment, Xie Linlang resolutely started practicing. At the beginning, ordinary flowers could meet her cultivation needs, but later, as her cultivation level improved, ordinary flowers could no longer meet her needs. Only those rare and precious flowers will do. Originally, she was just a concubine from the Xie family lineage. Later, when she entered the palace, her status was just that of Jiu, who was neither above nor below. With the help of Kunfang Ju, her appearance becomes better and better day by day, and her body naturally exudes a fragrance. She carefully planned a drama about meeting the emperor, and then she actually slept with him. Later, she was promoted day by day and reached the position of noble concubine. At this stage, even the Xie family could no longer ignore her. She took the opportunity to make a good sale to the family, and the family was willing to support her and help her deal with some difficult things. Mutual benefit to both parties. Helping her collect and find rare flowers from various places is one of them. For this reason, all members of the Xie family scattered around received this order, and Xie Yun was just an insignificant one among them. The purple cloud butterfly was specially raised by concubine Xie to find rare flowers quickly. Xie Yun has been incompetent in this matter before, which has caused dissatisfaction in the family. But this time, he reported it immediately after discovering Yuli, but he did not expect that the imperial concubine would pay so much attention to it that she would come in person. Xia Yun felt deeply honored, and at the same time secretly determined in his heart that no matter how much it cost, he must get the jade glass this time. Concubine Xia learned about the situation from him and gave him the same instructions. Coming from such a long distance required a lot of spiritual energy, so concubine Xia said a few words and then withdrew. It wasn't until the drawing paper returned to pure white that Xia Yun raised his head. At this time, a voice came from outside the door, "Master, Miss Shen is here." Hearing that Shen Yazi had arrived, Xia Yun immediately opened the door and said, "Please come in quickly." At the same time, he straightened his clothes and went out to greet him. Miss Shen, after entering the hall, Xia Yun said hello to Shen Yazi first, then looked at Qingbao sitting on her with a friendly smile. "Young master, are you here too?" "Qingbao, my name is Uncle Xia." Shen Yazi shook Qingbao's little hand. Xia Yun waved his hand and said, "At my age, I can be Qingbao's grandfather." Qingbao took the opportunity to call him grandpa. Hearing the crisp milky voice made Xia Yun feel comfortable all over. He thought that someday that Xia Zhenlin would give him such an adorable grandson. However, thinking of his son's virtue, he had no choice but to suppress this idea with regret. "Miss Shen, can we have dinner?" Xia Yun asked again. "Shen Yi knew, I already used it before coming here." Xia Yun didn't talk nonsense. "In that case, I will take Miss Shen directly to the warehouse." Shen Yazi followed Xia Yun all the way to the warehouse located in the southwest of the mansion. There was no one guarding the outside of the warehouse. Xia Yun took out a token and pressed it into a groove on the door, and the door opened in response. It turns out that you need a token to enter. Furthermore, Shen Yazi could notice that although Xia Yun had no cultivation base, his martial arts was not weak. To be honest, if it comes to a real fight, a monk in the early stage of qi refining is worse than a martial arts master. No wonder the woman didn't dare to come directly to the door. At the same time, she also sensed several auras hidden around the warehouse. They were stationed in certain directions and formed a formation. When they joined forces, they attacked, and when they retreated, they defended. Among these people, the leader is a third-level qi refiner, one level higher than that woman. Xia Yun made a gesture of invitation. Shen Yazi scanned the warehouse with his spiritual consciousness and found no hidden weapons, so he took Qingbao and stepped in. The warehouse is really not small, it is as big as a small library. Rows of tall shelves are arranged in an orderly manner, with various items displayed in categories. Arrived in this environment, Yi Chang was like a fish in water. He automatically activated his natural treasure hunting skills without being depressed and knew the instructions. While he was searching, Shen Yazi also took Qingbao and looked at them, sighing in his heart, "Why are these treasures not hers? I really want to get them all and sell them to the trial manual, and convert them all into points. Then she might not have to worry about it for a long time." Yi Chang encouraged her, "How about you take all these into the space? Anyway, even if you take them in, the city lord won't be able to find them. Are you mentally retarded? I came in with my front foot, and everything disappeared with my back foot. It's strange that he didn't suspect me. I still want to continue to live my little life here safely." Yu Chain was a little embarrassed. "Then how about we come secretly at night and do a big job? Adorable baby, the miracle doctor is so awesome." Author, 955. Chapter 147. Shen Yazi had to admit that she was very excited about this proposal, but she was a person with persistence, principles, and moral bottom line. How could she do such a thing? Wouldn't that set a bad example for Qingbao? So Shen Yazi rejected it heartbrokenly. "Xiao's Hizi, come quickly, I found the purple mirror." Yu Chain sent a message to her. Shen Yazi walked over and came to a shelf in the corner. If this place were compared to a grocery store, then the products she had seen before were the products on the shelves, while the products here were slow-moving discount products. They were placed scattered on the shelf, all gathering dust. Shen Yizi picked up the mirror, but couldn't help but be disappointed. She originally thought the mirror was some great treasure, but she didn't expect it to be just a defective product. I don't know how much it was before. It was only about the size of a child's palm. On the back were engraved two very ancient seal characters, Zijhen. The surface of the mirror was dark. She thought it was the dust that had fallen on it at first, but after she cast a cleaning spell, the mirror was still dim, and only blurred figures were reflected in the mirror. It's probably because the treasure has been hidden. In my perception, this mirror is indeed a treasure, and it is the highest grade among them. Yi Chang flicked his tail. Do you want to choose him? Shen Yizi smiled a little gloomily. Choose, why not choose? Coming out of the warehouse, Shen Yizi found that Xia Yun had not left yet, but was waiting in the yard. Have you made your choice, Miss Shen? Xia Yun couldn't help but feel a little strange when he saw that her hands were empty. Shen Yizi smiled helplessly and nodded at Qingbao's face. This guy is clinging to this broken mirror, so I can only choose him. Xia Yun then noticed that Qingbao was holding a broken mirror in his hand, and couldn't remember when he had such a thing in his warehouse. However, he made up his mind to make good friends with Shen Yizi, so he said, since Qingbao likes it, then it will be treated as a meeting gift from my grandfather to him. Miss Shen will go in and choose one. Shen Yizi shook his head. No need. Although I don't know what the use of this mirror is, it is not complete yet, but since it can be collected into the treasure house, it is not a mortal thing. It cannot be said that this is a broken artifact. If that is the case. If so, I'm lucky. Ha ha ha, Miss Shen really knows how to joke. Xia Yun couldn't help laughing loudly, not taking her words seriously at all. The artifact is something that only exists in legends. How could it appear in the warehouse of a small city lord like him? As he walked out, Xia Yun asked, Miss Shen, what are your plans for that jade glass plant? Shen Yizi heard the string and knew the elegant meaning, and her heart moved. What do you think, sir? Xia Yun smiled heartily. Haha, to tell you the truth, I really like that jade glass plant. I wonder if Miss Shen can part with it? Of course, I will not let Miss Shen suffer in terms of price. Yuli really shocked Shen Yizi before, so after she came back, she made a point of learning more about Yuli from Kuimi, a walking encyclopedia. Discovered that this flower is not only beautiful to look at, but also a medicinal herb that can soothe the soul, nourish the qi, and moisturize the skin. And jade-colored glaze that is more than 1,000 years old can be separated from the soil and placed indoors as a coral-like decoration. It can be used as a beautiful ornamental object and can also bring great benefits to the people around it. But such jade and colored glaze are hard to come by. The one Shen Yizi bought before was more than 200 years old. Now it has been planted in the space by her. With the time bonus of space soil, I believe she can still look forward to the Millennium Jade Glaze. As for selling it to the city lord, Shen Yizi had no such plan. But if she refuses directly, what will the city lord do if he puts on small shoes for her in the future? Although she is not afraid, it is still troublesome, isn't it? Shen Yizi looked embarrassed. Sir, it's not about money. I also like Yuli very much, and I want to try to see if I can cultivate more raimets. Why don't you think about it like this? It lasts for 1 month. If I successfully cultivate it within 1 month, I will sell the original strain to you. If not, I can only say sorry to you. Xia Yun thought that if he said this, Shen Yizi would definitely agree, but he didn't expect that she actually refused. How could he explain it to the imperial concubine? Jade glass must be obtained, but it is not advisable to use too drastic methods. Otherwise, if the news spreads, it will be difficult to do things in the future. And based on the relationship between Miss Shen and Miss Han, if she files a complaint against Mr. Kui in front of him, he may lose his position as city lord. I took the liberty, please don't blame Miss Shen. Xiayun was very tolerant and generous. After coming out of the city lord's mansion, Shen Yizi went to Tianbao Pavilion. Previously, she asked He Buzzy to help collect heavenly materials and earthly treasures for her. Before He Buzzy left, he handed over the matter to the shopkeeper Zhou Keifeng and asked her to go to Tianbao Pavilion regularly to pick it up. I just happened to come to the county town, and I have accumulated a sum of funds on hand. I think it should be enough to buy a few natural materials and treasures. Handing the money with one hand and delivering the goods with the other, Shen Yizi took the things and went to find Master Wang Hexian, who was obsessed with medicine. The two discussed some issues regarding medical refining. Both parties feel that they have benefited a lot. As for the woman who cast the ecstasy on her and asked her to take out the purple mirror, let her wait slowly. It was almost noon when we came out of Tianbao Pavilion. Shen Yizi then went to the tea house and entered the previous box. When you step in, the expression on your face instantly adjusts to a sluggish state of being fascinated. Meng Ruyan in the box saw her, with murderous intent clearly flashing in her eyes. It was just a trip to the private treasury of the city lord's mansion to get a mirror, but it took her so long. If it weren't for the fact that she still looked stiff and empty, Meng Ruyan would have thought that Shen Yizi did it on purpose. "Where's the mirror? Bring it." Shen Yizi took out the mirror and placed it on the table. Meng Ruyan immediately reached out to take it, but failed. The surface of the mirror was pressed by a finger as white and as slender as an onion. The owner of this hand is none other than Shen Yizi. Meng Ruyan looked along the hand, and what caught her eye was her teasing eyes. In a flash of lightning, she realized that this woman was pretending before. It happened to be that he managed to hide it from her. Doesn't this mean that this woman is even more powerful than her? Aware of this, Meng Ruyan felt horrified. When she was about to grab the mirror and leave, her whole body was frozen in place, unable to move. "What did you do to me?" She looked frightened and angry, but there was fear hidden in her eyes. Shen Yizi smiled leisurely and said, "Of course I've immobilized you. Can't you feel it yourself?" Meng Ruyan's expression changed again. The body holding technique can only be used at the late stage of qi refining, right? Could it be that her cultivation level is far higher than hers? Adorable baby, the miracle doctor is so awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 148. Meng Ruyan couldn't help but panic, and she said with a fierce look, "Don't act like this. I am a disciple of the Immortal Medical Section. If you dare to attack me, the Immortal Medical Sect will never let you go." Shen Yizi pretended to be scared and touched his chest. "Oh, I'm so scared." Rolling his eyes, "What is the Immortal Medicine Sect? I've never heard of it." Meng Ruyan was so angry that she almost couldn't breathe. Shen Yizi stopped talking nonsense to her and directly popped a truth pill into her mouth. This is an enhanced version of truth pills for monks, with medicinal spring added in it. Next, it comes to a question and answer session. Shen Yizi asked a question, and Meng Ruyan couldn't help but answer, unable to control herself at all. "It turns out that the person in front of me was the one who ruined Han Baokin's reputation at the Kunfang party and ruined her plan." It's a pity that Meng Ruyan understands it too late now. When asked the last key question, "Why are you looking for this broken purple mirror?" "The young master asked me to come." "I don't know why she is looking for this mirror." "Who is the young master?" Just after she said one word, Meng Ruyan suddenly groaned, her orifices bled, and she died suddenly. Shen Yizi's first reaction was to cover Qingbao's eyes to prevent her from seeing this scene. At this moment, Meng Ruyan fell down and lost her breath. The little white frog that had been lying quietly on Qingbao's collar as a decoration moved. He jumped on Meng Ruyan, his tongue stuck out like lightning, and pulled out an insect the size of a mung bean from her body. "Let the words be poisoned. It can prevent the bewitched person from saying certain things." Meng Ruyan was killed by Ling Yang just because she mentioned the name of the young sect leader. Although I didn't get the full name of the young master, I at least knew that his surname was Zhao. There was Zhao Si in front of him, and then there was young Master Zhao. This person named Zhao is really haunted. Shen Yizi sent Qingbao into the space, fumbled around Meng Ruyan for a while, and found some jade pendants and jewelry, as well as a delicate and small pouch. The bag is not a kinkan bag, but it is also unusual. It should be made of a special kind of animal fur. The capacity is not as small as it seems, and it contains a lot of things. Shen Yizi didn't take a closer look and just put it into the space. As for Meng Ruyan's body, with a wave of her hand, she also took it into the space, dug a hole and buried it. According to the characteristics of the soil in the space, it probably won't take long for it to be completely digested. Although she did not kill the person, he was still related to her, so it was better to eliminate her traces completely. Shen Yizi cleaned the scene again and left without missing any traces. By the way, I also paid for the tea. Back in the small courtyard, Shen Yizi found that only Qianwu and Kun San were there, and the rest were gone. Where are they? Kun San said, Mr. Kui took Miss Han to the Han mansion, while Miss Chuntao and Brother Li went to the market. Shen Yizi nodded. It seemed that they would not be back at noon, so there was no need to share lunch with them. She simply made 4 dishes and 1 soup, and the 3 adults and 1 King Bao sat around the small square table in the yard and ate. The Han mansion is also having a meal, but the atmosphere is not that good. In the dining room, in addition to the Han family, the Zhao family was also present. Han Zhengqing and Luo Shi were sitting at the top, with sumptuous dishes placed on a long table. The Tianyuan Empire respects the left, and Kui Mi, as an honored guest, is naturally placed at the top of the left column. Han Bailuo sat next to him, and beyond him was Mo Fei Yang, who followed him shamelessly. The Zhao family of 3 were sitting opposite, and Zhao Menjiu happened to be opposite Han Bailuo. He glanced at Han Bailuo from time to time, with complicated expressions in his eyes. Han Bailuo picked a crystal grape from the fruit plate and played with it in his hand, looking a little bored. Mo Fei Yang saw the pale-faced weakling opposite him looking restlessly at Han Bailuo. The fire in his heart flashed, and the left corner of his lips curled up in an evil way. He deliberately approached Han Bailuo and fed the peeled grapes to him. On her lips. Before she refused, she spoke softly, "Look at the face of Zhao Menjiu across from you." His face instantly turned green, "Didn't you? He hooks up with you and hugs you, but he doesn't allow you to have contact with other men. This kind of double-standard dog man, it should be treated well, don't you think?" Opposite, Zhao Menjiu looked at Han Bailuo and Mo Fei Yang, obviously looking at a pair of adulterers, and Han Bailuo was the wife who cuckolded him. He held the wine glass tightly, his eyes burning. Han Bailuo thought about the disgusting and artificial displays of affection between Zhao Menjiu and Han Baokan in front of her in the past. She was extremely angry at that time, but what did Zhao Menjiu, a scumbag, say? Sister Baokan is so weak and kind, so I should take more care of her. And what about Han Baokan? One thing in front of the other and another in the back. In front of Zhao Menjiu, he pretended to be a pure and weak white lotus, but in front of her, he was bad and leaking pus. She was noisy and fussy, but Zhao Menjiu never believed her. Haha, now that the situation has changed, she will let Zhao Menjiu, a bitch, experience how she felt at the beginning today. Immediately opened his mouth and took the grape pulp that Mo Fei Yang had fed to his mouth into his mouth. Is it sweet? Mo Fei Yang noticed her cooperation and went even further, asking into her ear. Although Han Bailuo wanted to put on a show, she had no intention of doing it for real. Mo Fei Yang was so close to her, which made her very uncomfortable. He glared at him, his eyes clearly saying, "That's enough for you, that's almost enough." Mo Fei Yang felt itchy at the sight of her spring-like eyes. His throat couldn't help but roll up and down a few times. He almost couldn't help but reached out and pinched her face. However, he was worried that this was in public and there was no real reason. Take actions. Just a smile on his face. Zhao Menjiao looked at the two men and women opposite him, furious. Han Beiluo, how dare she? Don't forget, she is still his fiancée. To be so close to another man in front of him. Obviously she has been chasing him before Brother Zhao and after Brother Zhao. He never believed that she would change her mind so quickly. Did she do this on purpose to make herself jealous? Well, that must be the case. She must still admire him in her heart, but she was jealous when she saw how considerate he was to Sister Baokan. Now, relying on her own beauty, she also picked up Qiao, wanting to test him with other men. Zhao Menjiao was convinced by his guess. Since she cares about him so much, has become so beautiful, and has such a powerful maternal wife, he will forgive her for the time being. But when she marries into their Zhao family, he will have to control her well. Don't you admire Dean Kui the most? In order to buy Dean Kui's traditional records, you went to a neighboring city. After buying it, you even forgot to eat and sleep while holding the book in hand. Now Kui Yuan the elder is right in front of you, why are you restrained? You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Adorable baby, the miracle doctor is so awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 149. Zhao Ziwen, who was sitting in the upper right position, turned to Zhao Menjiao, with a smile on his face, and the hint in his eyes was very obvious. Zhao Menjiao was not stupid to the end. He understood immediately, picked up the wine glass and came to Kui Mi. Sir, this student has admired you for a long time, and I would like to toast you with a drink. No matter how well educated Kui Mi is, he still can't put on a good face when facing the man who ruined his precious granddaughter. He doesn't feel honored by his admiration. Instead, he feels an indescribable resentment in his heart. He asked with a calm expression, really? Then let me test you. Zhao Menjiao felt nervous and a little scared. As the legitimate son of the Zhao family, he will inherit thousands of family properties in the future. He usually reads and writes just for the sake of being elegant. How has he ever really been a scholar? Facing the examination of Kui Mi, a great Confucian, he felt uneasy standing upright, but he had to endure it and pretend to be happy. Han Beiluo looked at his hypocritical appearance and curled his lips, becoming more and more disdainful of him. How could she have fallen in love with such a scumbag before? There is a saying that gold and jade are ruined on the outside, but Zhao Menjiao doesn't even have the appearance of gold and jade on the outside. He is worse than the annoying Mo Fei Yang. It was also at this time that Han Beiluo realized that Mo Fei Yang was really good looking, with hair as sharp as a knife, a pair of peach blossom eyes that always held a frivolous smile, a nose that seemed to be dangling, lips, and her eyes touched his lips. He suddenly looked away as if he had been burned. Such a reaction naturally did not escape Mo Fei Yang's eyes. He leaned over and said, how is it? Did you suddenly realize that this young master is as handsome as a flower? Han Beiluo. Where can a man describe himself as beautiful as a flower? This guy is really narcissistic. Here, Kui Mi glared at Mo Fei Yang secretly. This brat hooked up with Beilu right under his nose. Do you think his grandfather is dead? But it's important to teach this boy named Zhao a lesson now, and settle the score with Mo Fei Yang when he gets back. Your father said that you have done a lot of research on my book Zhuan 11 Lu, so what do you think of my The Heart is the Principle? Are there things outside the heart and principles outside the heart in the world? Zhao Menjiao was dumbfounded. What do you think? He has never heard of it, how can he see it? Dad, you have tricked your son into misery. If you had known it earlier, you would not have come up to get close to him. How can you step down now? He scratched his ears and cheeks, sweat dripping down his back from the anxiety, but he couldn't hold back a single word. Well, what this means is, it means. Kui-mi shook his head. He didn't ask him to translate, but asked him to express his own opinion. As a result, he didn't even understand the meaning of the sentence. Seeing him shaking his head, Zhao Menjiu became more and more panicked. Zhao's father was also extremely anxious. He wanted to remind him of a few key words, but he didn't dare. He couldn't help but glare at Mother Zhao. He is a good son who has been indulged by you. Previously, I always told him how hard it was for his son to study, which made him think that his son was a hard worker, but he didn't expect that he was so useless. What a disgrace to him. But at this time, Mo Fei Yang joined in the fun and Dottie spoke up, Mr. Kui, in my opinion, this means that you have to follow your heart when doing things. As long as you are worthy of your heart, you will be worthy of your parents. What do you think? Am I right? Kui-mi stroked his beard and said, it's not bad that you can understand this. Mo Fei Yang smiled brightly, and his big white teeth made Zhao Menjiu dizzy. He is sure that this dog man must have done it on purpose. Han Beiluo looked at Mo Fei Yang with a little surprise, but he looked at him with admiration. She thought this shameless and scoundrel man was ignorant and unskilled. Unexpectedly, there was still a little ink in his stomach. In this examination, Mo Fei Yang vs Zhao Menjiu, a complete victory. Zhao Menjiu limped back to his position like a drowned chicken. However, before he could sit down, he heard Kui-mi say, I am here mainly for two things. The first one is Beilu's marriage. Zhao's father originally thought that his son's poor performance would definitely give Mr. Kui some ideas, but he didn't expect that he would bring it up. But before he could be happy, Kui-mi continued, although marriage is a good marriage between two people, it must be happy between the man and the woman. Otherwise, if a pair of resentful couples are brought together, will their life be happy after they get married? Zhao's father and Han Zhengqing, who was sitting at the top, looked at each other. What does Mr. Kui mean? Does something sound wrong? Since Mr. Zhao and Miss Han have made a lifelong commitment to each other privately, we, Beiluo, will not delay Mr. Zhao and Miss Han from staying together. We also ask the Zhao family to return the token they received during the engagement. This is we will return the jade pendant to Zhao intact. Kui-mi took out a jade pendant from his arms and motioned to Kui-fu behind him to take it to Father Zhao. The jade pendant is clear and without a trace of impurities. It is indeed a good piece of jade, which shows the sincerity of the marriage between the Zhao family and the Han family at that time. Over the years, Han Beiluo has worn this jade on his body all the time and rubbed it frequently, making the jade pendant more moist and transparent. It's just that after today, this jade pendant should be returned. Han Beiluo looked at the jade pendant with a somewhat confused look. Mo Fei Yang raised his eyebrows slightly and asked, do you like it? He took out a jade pendant and put it into her hand without any explanation. It was a crystal clear mutton fat white jade pony. It was obviously the owner's favorite thing, and there was a layer of warm patina on the surface. With a touch of warmth, that is, his body temperature? Han Beiluo immediately seemed to be burned and threw the white jade pony back to him. I don't want it. The smile on Mo Fei Yang's face gradually faded. You are so precious to Zhao Menjiu, but you will discard mine like worn-out shoes. Han Beiluo's heart tightened, as if being held by a hand. She opened her mouth, but still didn't say anything. Snapped. There was a loud slap in the face. Han Beiluo looked over and saw that Zhao Menjiu's face had been hit sideways, and blood even flowed from the corner of his mouth. Zhao's mother was so distressed that she rushed to block Zhao Menjiu, and put her face under Zhao's father's raised slap. Hit me. You're planning on me too. It's simply unreasonable. It's true that a loving mother often fails you or is like this now, and you, the mother, must bear half of the responsibility. Although Father Zhao was acting in a dramatic way, when he said these words, he felt that this was the case in his heart. Han Zhengqing got down from his position and grabbed Zhao's father. Brother Ziwen, if you have anything to say, just say it. Why did you start taking action? If you want to teach Zhao Menjiao a lesson, just go home and teach him a lesson behind closed doors. In their Han family, what's the point of teaching him a lesson in front of so many people? Zhao Ziwen turned around a few times with his hands on his hips, his face still filled with anger. Naijan, tell yourself, what's going on between you and the second girl? He was trying to find a way out for Zhao Menjiao so that he could take the opportunity to distance himself from Han Baoken. Adorable baby, the miracle doctor is so awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 150. At first he was happy to see Yu and Han Baoken succeed. After all, the original Han Baoluo was too unattractive. But now, Han Baoken has lost her innocence and reputation. How can she enter the Zhao family again? Even a concubine is not suitable. Zhao Menjiao was worthy of being Zhao Ziwen's son. He inherited his cold-blooded and selfish temperament in his bones. He immediately knelt down and grabbed the hem of Zhao Ziwen's clothes. Dad, I don't have much contact with Bao Qin and the other two girls. Bao Lu is always present when we meet. Yes, Baoluo, please testify for me quickly so that Mr. Kui won't misunderstand. His pleading voice was laced with command, and it was obvious that his attitude towards her had not changed yet, and he regarded her as the same Han Baoluo who had always been submissive to him in the past. Han Baoluo left the table and came to Zhao Menjiao. He looked at him condescendingly and smiled sarcastically. Testify. Haha, Zhao Menjiao, you are simply ridiculous. Before Mrs. Zhao, who had always loved her son as much as her life, could get angry, the smile on her face suddenly fell and she said sternly, you are flirting with Han Baoken in front of me, and you treat me as your fiancé like nothing. You reprimanded me in person for being ugly, fat, and unworthy of you. The Zhao family. He threatened to break off the engagement with me and marry Han Baoken. Why, have you forgotten what you said? I have not forgotten it. I remember every word. She tapped her heart. Kui Mi was angry and distressed when he heard that, the Zhao family dared to bully him, Baoluo, to this point. Mo Fei Yang looked at Zhao Menjiao as if he were looking at a dead person. Zhao Menjiao was about to explain, but was interrupted by Kui Mi's shout, that's enough. Bring me the token, I'm cancelling this marriage. We Baoluo cannot afford to be the lintel of your Zhao family. Seeing that he was really angry, Zhao Ziwen was afraid that if he continued to speak, he might offend the dean even more, so he sighed deeply, took out a long wooden box from his arms, and handed it back to him with both hands. Kui Mi opened it and took a look, his eyes filled with tears. Inside lay a jade sandalwood hairpin, which he had carved with his own hands and inserted into Yu Niang's hair when she was growing up. Jade sandalwood is an extremely precious wood, which has always been only supplied to the royal family. Its texture is fine and warm, and its texture is crystal clear and gorgeous. It is a bit warmer and thicker than jade, and more transparent than ordinary wood. It has always been priceless but not marketable. He asked many people to inquire before he got such a small piece, and it took him more than 10 days to carve it into shape. He still remembered how happy Yu Niang was when she received the hairpin. Later, he put all other jewelry aside and only wore this jade sandalwood hairpin. Yu Niang was able to use this hairpin as a token of Baolu's engagement with the Zhao family, which shows that she attached great importance to the marriage at that time. It's just that Zhao Menjiao is obviously not a good match for Baoluo. The Zhao family had failed her. Kui Mi handed the hairpin to Han Baoluo. My child, this hairpin is your mother's favorite thing. You should keep it well. Han Baoluo took it solemnly and said, well, I will take good care of it. Kui Mi glanced at Han Zhengqing for the last time and said to Kui Fu, take out the gift I prepared. Kui Fu untied a rectangular box that had been carried on his back and presented it to Han Zhengqing with both hands. This, let's think of it as repaying your kindness for taking Yu Niang in. After Kui Mi finished speaking, he took Han Bailuo and left. Han Zhengqing didn't care to look at the gift in the box and hurriedly followed it, sending it all the way. Kui Mi waved his hand, "Go back, there's no need to send him away." Han Zhengqing, however, persisted and sent several people to the gate. He looked at Han Bailu, raised his hand and touched her head. "Bailu, although we are not related by blood, you have called me daddy for so many years. If you have anything in the future, just come to me." Han Bailuo once had hatred and resentment towards this father, but when she learned that he was not her biological father, all those previous emotions disappeared. Hearing what Han Zhengqing said at this time, she couldn't help but feel a little sour. She lowered her head to hide her expression. "Well, I will. You should also take good care of yourself." As soon as the figures of Kui Mi and others disappeared in the hall, Zhao Ziwen kicked Zhao Menjiao fiercely, "You bastard! If you fail to succeed, you will fail." Mother Zhao was about to howl when she was frozen in place by his stern look. Until he strode away, he dared not move and hurriedly went to help his son up. Coming out of the Han mansion, Kui Mi and Han Bailuo got on the carriage, Kui Fu drove the carriage, and Mo Fei Yang followed on horseback. Han Bailuo took out the jade sandalwood hairpin and stroked the lines on it carefully. "Grandpa, help me insert it." "Good." Kui Mi took the hairpin and carefully inserted it into her hair. He stepped back and looked at her for a while, looking at the very similar faces between her and Yu Niang, and couldn't help but fall into memories. "Grandpa! Grandpa!" Han Bailuo called him twice in succession before he came back to his senses. "Does it look good?" she asked playfully, stroking the hairpin in her hair. Good looking, as good looking as your mother." Kui Mi could not help but nod. A group of children roared past with laughter, and the lively shouting sound entered the carriage. Han Bailu opened the curtain and looked out. Kui Mi took the opportunity to touch the corners of his eyes and wipe away the tears. "Grandpa, today is the Ghost Festival, I almost forgot." Han Bailuo couldn't help but feel a little annoyed when he saw many stalls outside selling lanterns, paper money, ingots, and other items. She actually forgot such an important day. "Isn't it, Kui Mi?" He opened the curtain and looked at the various objects tied with paper on the stalls. He couldn't help but feel sad when he thought of Yu Niang lying alone in the cold coffin. "Grandpa, let's go see my mother." Under the guidance of Han Bailuo, Kui Fu successfully drove the car to its destination, a cemetery on the outskirts of the city. This place is surrounded by mountains and rivers, with beautiful scenery. It can be called a geomantic treasure land. Many families in the city bury their deceased family members here. Han Bailuo took Kui Mi to her mother's grave in a familiar manner. Mo Fei Yang and Kui Fu followed silently. The closer Kui Mi got, the slower his pace became and the more timid he became. However, the tomb finally appeared in sight. Different from the overgrown weeds elsewhere, the area around this tomb is actually a bit too clean. Not only are there no weeds, there are no fallen leaves or anything like that. There are 4 words engraved on the tombstone: Tomb of Yu Niang. No surname. Since Yu Niang is still alive, why not go home? Kui Mi asked Han Zhengqing this question at that time. At that time he replied, Yu Niang said that when she woke up, she could not remember the past, but only remembered the word Yu Niang. Kui Mi suddenly burst into tears and threw herself in front of the grave, wailing so hard that those who heard it couldn't help but feel sad and shed tears. Even the cynical smile on Mo Fei Yang's face disappeared. He looked at Han Bailuo. The little girl was kneeling there, with snot and tears streaming down her face, crying incomprehensibly. He walked over, knelt down on one knee beside her, and took out a veil and gave it to her. The veil is as white as snow and as soft as silk, obviously not ordinary. Hanbealogo didn't notice it at all at this time. He took the handkerchief and blew his nose. Mo Fei Yang couldn't help but hold his forehead.